Hello, Abnormal Family. Just a few things before we get to this encounter. Number one, if you would like to help support Bring Hunter Home, the links are in the description. Also, number two, if you have made a donation, could you please send us your name and address to our email, abnormalinvestigations77@gmail.com. We are in the process of ordering thank you cards where each one of us will write you a small thank you, and we will also sign the card, which will be sent to you. So please email me your name and everything, your address, so that we could please send you a card and thank you for what you're doing to help Hunter from each one of us. I think that pretty much clears what I need to say right now, so let's get into the encounter. Let me start off by telling you that Grand Portage is one of the most rural places in Minnesota, and it is at the northmost tip of the state. The population is about 722 at the most. It is on the shores of Lake Superior, and it is indeed a very beautiful hamlet. We have hunting areas on great places to fish on the lake. In the winter, you can see the northern lights at times, which always keeps me and my family awake for some time. I live in a decent-sized house at the edge of the woods and a couple of meters from the water. Every day you can either take a hike in the beautiful woods or go to the lake, which is the family swimming pool, if you catch my drift. I am a 30-year-old mother with 2 children and a husband, and we have lived in this area for our entire lives. We have loved this area ever since, and we have no intention of moving, no matter what caused the most scariest moment of my life. It was on a fall day, around November, I think, and I had decided to take a walk in the woods by myself. It was about 6 p.m., and the sky was beginning to darken. I did not mind, as I had walked in the woods hundreds of times at dusk, or even the pitch black at night, and nothing ever happened to me. I didn't realize that tonight would change my opinion of these woods for the rest of my life. I zipped my coat and walked outside. I breathed the fresh air. The crisp air made me feel at ease. My husband goes hunting and fishing in the woods time to time, and he had taught me all the paths in the woods. I took the path leading to deep in the woods, and I wasn't worried. As I said, I had been taught the paths and knew them like the back of my hand. As I was walking, I saw the occasional rabbit and a chubby squirrel, and I was lucky enough to catch a glimpse of a doe and her fawn in the darkening sky. As I walked deeper into the woods, I suddenly picked up that all the sounds in the woods had stopped. No insects chirping, no footsteps of the nighttime animals. I was confused, but when I would hunt with my husband, he told me it was because a predator was near. There were no coyotes, wolves, or the occasional bear. There were also moose in the woods, and since these woods sort of connected with the Grand Portage State Park, I was sure there were hundreds of them. Suddenly, I heard an ear-piercing wail. I had never heard something like this in all the years of my life. No animal in these woods could make a sound like that, not even a screech owl. Then I picked up on the smell of decay, like rotting flesh with fish. I pressed my fingers over my nose, and I did gag. There must be a super dead animal around here, I thought. I realized then that I heard footsteps coming away, but for right now, they were to the left. I turned, but I saw nothing. Gradually, the footsteps got louder, and I turned to run, but tripped on a piece of bark. Yes, I know, just like the movies, guys. Then I heard something I would never forget. It was my 5-year-old son's voice calling me to the right, just behind a couple of big old oak trees. The voice said, "Mommy, is that you? Come over here. I found something cool." I wrinkled my face in confusion. My son obviously was not here. He was in bed at the time of night. Furthermore, he would not come out of here alone. as he would easily get lost or hurt in these woods. The voice repeated itself. "Mommy, is that you? Come over here. I found something cool." The voice was not my son's, but it was all wrong. It seemed as if someone had recorded his voice and played it with some static. I was panicking, and as I got up, the thing responsible for talking in my son's voice stepped out from behind an oak tree. This thing was tall and lanky, about 6 foot tall, a bit taller than me, as I am 5'7". This thing's face, it was horrible. It had the deepest black eyes I've ever seen, and I know those two eyes were staring at me. It had no nose, but its mouth, oh my God, its mouth was huge. Its skin was pale gray, almost sticky looking with white patches. It had no hair on its head, and I could see ribs protruding from its sides like it hadn't eaten in weeks. Its arms were super thin, as were its legs, but for some reason it looked very strong. Suddenly it did what I could only depict was a smile. This smile chilled me so much that I felt like, 100 cold fronts were going through my body. The thing had jagged white teeth, and when it smiled, its mouth seemed to expand even wider, like a snake could unhinge its jaws, making its mouth too big for its face. Then it did something that scared me even more. It spoke in my 7-year-old daughter's voice this time, saying, "Oh, Mommy, it's cold out here. Let's go home. Will you carry me?" I could only manage out a blood-curdling scream as I bolted down the path that led back to my house. I ran with everything I had, but I had only one thing behind me, and it wasn't my son and it wasn't my daughter, because I heard the raspy breathing along with its fast-running, barefooted footsteps slapping on the mud. It let out a series of ear-piercing wails and shrieks, but I did not turn around. As I reached the clearing, I heard the thing stop. I didn't hear its footsteps, but that did not stop me from bolting up the porch steps, open the door, slam it closed, and lock it tightly. My husband, surprised, asked me what was wrong. He was coming out of the kitchen with a bowl of oatmeal. He must have seen the fear in my face as I pulled down the shades and all the windows of the house and began to lock the doors. When I regained my composure, I managed to sit down and talk with my husband. To my surprise, he believed me, admitting that some of his hunts he had heard shrieks. And when I talked with my husband, to my surprise, he believed he had heard voices also. I did a lot of research of what this thing could have been, and the closest thing I could find was either a Wendigo or a Wraith, both creatures of the forest who were known to scream and change their voices. All I can tell you is this story is 100% true. Me and my husband have made a deal never to go back to those woods alone, and especially at dusk or dark. You know, whenever you say that, that reminded me of a time that I was sitting in the house one time, and Sarah was here and everybody, and I heard my mom outside yell for Sarah. And my mom always had a whistle that she would use when she would whistle for us whenever she wanted us. And I heard her yell for Sarah, and of course, I sat there for a little bit and sat there for a little bit, and she yelled again, and then I heard that whistle that's, your last chance to come out before she gets mad and has to come in. And I yelled at Sarah myself in the house to kind of help Sarah out, and I was like, "Hey, Sarah, Mom wants you." And she's like, "Where's she at?" And I said, "She's out front." And this was like dusky dark, and she's like, "Okay." So Sarah goes outside, and whenever Sarah goes outside, well, my mom comes out of the bathroom. So Sarah comes busting through the door screaming, and my mom was standing there yelling, "What's wrong, Sarah?" And I'm like, "Mom, didn't you yell at her outside?" I sent her outside, and Sarah's like, "Mom, there was something behind the big cedar tree at the end of the driveway, and whenever I walked out there, it was telling me to come here, and it had its arm out, but I could tell it wasn't you because it was way bigger than you." So these things will use voices to try to trick you. There's been many times I've been fishing with my friends or something like that, and I've heard one of them go, "What?" And I'll be like, "Huh?" And they'll say, "I heard you say my name." And I'll be like, "No, I didn't say your name." And I've heard the same thing. My granny that went through all this, and her dad was a full-blood Cherokee. He would tell us, when you hear your name, you don't never answer it, because when you answer it, you give it place, and that's something you don't want to do. So when you're in the woods, you want to make sure that who you're talking to is actually talking to you. So that was just some of the things that I was told when I was younger, and some of the things that I've, went through. And then sending Sarah out to whatever that was, I actually sent her out there. I felt bad about it, but yeah, they will sound like you. Guys, thank you for listening to this. I really appreciate all your support and everything. And don't forget to send me your address. I would love to send you all a thank you card. We would all like to send you a little message on it and, sign it for you and whatever and get it to you. But we appreciate so much what you're doing for Hunter. And someday he will come on and thank you all personally himself. Until next time, guys, keep your head on a swivel and don't become something's dinner. See you on the next one.